That's great, Tommy. That's quite a story. So, it's interesting when we look at banking in general. Credit cards, credit card debt, student loan debt. We look at every kind of debt you can imagine. I always used to think, wow, I go in and I want to get this home mortgage and it's $275,000. Okay, and I go in and I just sign a piece of paper, and $275,000 appears somewhere. I never get it. I don't touch it. Welcome to the Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help home service pros cut through the noise, sharpen their business tools, and reclaim the profit, freedom, and impact they've been missing. I'm your host, Richard Walsh, Profit Freedom Coach, and I'm here to help you stop grinding and start growing. Let's sharpen the spear. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. Looking forward to this one. Got Tommy Kilpatrick with us today. And Tommy, no one knows Tommy better than Tommy. Tommy, give us the backstory, bring us up to speed, and we are going to get into an incredible conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is a lot of fun. Well, first of all, I'm a retired teacher, and I'm living in the Philippines right now. And I'm an author. And I wrote a book on health and healing, and I got an infomercial contract in 2004. So I needed to be test marketed on radio just to see what would be the best way to strategize to the American audience. And so I lived on my credit cards for about 6 months, and I ran up about $85,000, but I was promised about $100,000 a month. And so we had a 13-page contract, so it was ironclad. And then what happened is one of the talents got in trouble with the FTC, and he made claims in his book that was outrageous. And so they came down hard, and my contract was canceled, and they said, sue us. So they were in Portland, Maine. So I didn't have the resources to sue them, but what was I going to sue them for? Put me on. So I got stuck with $85,000 of credit card debt. God. So that put me in a little bit of a depression that you could imagine. And my expectations were also dashed. And so one morning I woke up and I was thinking about my dad. He's a CPA, a certified public accountant, and I was in school to be a CPA. Even though I never got the credential, I can do the work. And I realized the bank doesn't have an invoice. And I went, oh my gosh, there is no debt. And then I have a memory. In our accounting class, in the banking portion, we were required to read the book Modern Money Mechanics. And in there, it says that you sign a promissory note, and then the banks write numbers into the checking account. Basically your free checking account. And then my father-in-law was an attorney and a judge, and we had long conversations about fraud undoes all contracts. So I do not have a contractual agreement with the bank. So I decided, with his help, to file 3 federal lawsuits by myself and in Los Angeles court. And it was going along pretty good. We had a deposition coming up. The bank was going to have to provide one of their employees to my office. They were going to have to answer all my questions, and on penalty of perjury, and they would have to go to jail or the fine for that threat over them. And all of a sudden I got called into court. And my father said, that's not typical. You don't get called into court by the judge. They're at this point, they're always asking about calendar. How are we doing with it? Are we going to trial? We're doing this. That's all they're really doing right at this point. And the defendants weren't there. So I said, Mr. Kilpatrick, do you have a credit card? I went, well, let me start at the beginning. We'll start at the beginning a little later. Do you have a credit card? Well, it started off as a gift card. A gift card, pull your card out. He goes, what's it say right there? Credit card. You're an idiot. Get out of here. So he dismissed all 3 cases. So that put me back into, oh my God, I'm going to get sued and I'm going to have to pay, because there's a thing called a 1099-C. I need to kind of go into it just very briefly, because if you borrow $100,000 from a bank and you don't pay them back, they notify the IRS, not to be evil or something like that. They are, but what they do is they notify the IRS that you have to then pay taxes like $30,000, $45,000 on that $100,000 loan that you didn't pay back, and they get to take a tax deduction. Well, I looked at my credit report about a month later, and all 3 banks were gone off my credit report, and my score went up. So what? And then what happened is I never got a 1099-C. and they never sued me. And so for 85,000, you would think but in my pleading, I explained exactly the crimes they're committing. So what I am is a whistleblower. I am a kind of an advocate for those people who have been involved in a worldwide scheme of banking fraud. So very quickly after that, a friend of mine had a charity. It was dormant. She gave it to me called Lighthouse of Hope, and I revamped it into credit repair. And so some people that had need for their credit score to go up did have some alleged credit card debt. And so I wrote a letter to the bank and they took it off too. So it was a pattern. And so then shift happens. My wife of 28 years, 13 years ago said, get out and take the dog with you. So I took a vow of poverty and became homeless on purpose so I could feel what it was like. And I traveled across the United States, and then I thought I was going to die on a farm. I thought life was great, 32 acres and raising animals and food. And then shift happens, and here I am on the outside. So I needed a credit card to get an airline ticket, and to rent a car, they don't let you do it with a debit card. It has to be a credit card. So I applied to Capital One, and they gave me, that's the important word, they gave me a $500 credit card. But I had no score and no history. I had been off grid for over 10 years. So it was blank. So how'd you do that? Well, I was a previous customer. Oh, okay. But that was one of the banks I sued for 35,000. So I got a credit card. So my score was about 525. Then I got a tiny little loan from a credit union I pay every month, and that's a installment loan. So then it jumped to 625. So over the period, I have used my credit card 10%, never pay an interest, never pay a late fee, never pay anything. So it's a free card to me. It's on my free checking accounts. But now my score is over 700. So I'm trying to get to 800. So to show you that, yes, this can happen to you. So that's a little bit of my background. It's a wild story. So I encourage skepticism. I'm a doubting Thomas, so I want you and your audience to also be a doubting Thomas. Don't believe anything I have to say. Don't believe the whole story. It's just a scam job. I don't believe this the scammer. So read the show notes, and there's links there, and read what the links say, and take this podcast to your CPA, your certified public accountant, or one person who's had one class of accounting will know what I'm talking about is actually 100% correct. It's not some crazy bill of exchange or some weird stuff. It's just business. And so that's what I do. Encourage you to disagree with me, and let's see where this thing goes.
Well, that's great, Tommy. That's quite a story. So, it's interesting when we look at, banking in general, credit cards, credit card debt, student loan debt. We look at every kind of debt you can imagine. I always used to think, wow, I go in and I want to get this home mortgage and it's $275,000. Okay. And I go in and I just sign a piece of paper, and $275,000 appears somewhere. I never get it. I don't touch it. There's 275 just appeared because of my signature. That's some power. I love my pen. This pen's amazing. I can just write money into existence, right? So, I think a lot of people don't think that way about all of this, about, currency, what's real money, what's currency, things of that nature, and really what they're doing with it. How do these people create this? Because if I go to the bank right now, Tommy, just like if you do, and say, can I get 15,000 in cash? They go, no, not today. We'll have to get it. I go, you'll have to get it. You don't have 15 grand in cash. Nope. You got to give us like 5 days notice. 5 days notice to get my $15,000. Wow, that's really something. So I want to jump down this little hole real quick, because I think what people don't get is, this cash, it's, fractional reserve banking, right? So for every dollar that a bank has, they can loan 9. Okay. So if they have $1 in the bank, they can loan $9. That's that magic sign, and poof, there's money. Right. So that's that whole thing. Of course, that stuff's gotten out of control and it's kind of reined in a little bit. But when we start to realize it, this is why they have our money. Why do they just take our money and give us a free account? Why do they do that? Why would they just hold our money for free? Now, some have fees. A lot of them have changed. They'll be like, that's kind of an odd thing, right? They must be just altruistic and just want to help us keep our money in a safe place. But it doesn't work that way, does it? It's a little bit different.
No, it's really simple. Just go to Wikipedia, which I know has a lot of this. This is the Federal Reserve, so look it up on page 6. It takes a while to read through it all. Go down, keep going. And it says right there that we rent our currency from the Federal Reserve. And it says we pay 6% every year on every single bill out there. So we are renting these notes, these promises to pay. That's what it is. It's a bill. Someone gave you a bill and you're passing that bill to somebody else. That's why they call it a bill. So there's all these reasons for this. So that's where the Federal Reserve had come into existence. And we know from Jekyll Island, it wasn't really truly passed into law, so we can question that. But they really didn't have any power back then. And what you can do is look up on Google 1776 to present inflation rate, and you will see the United States flat, and then all of a sudden 33 straight up. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that back then you would deposit money in the bank, and then they would take that money and give it to somebody else. So they took the money out of you took the money out of someone's pocket and then put it in someone else's pocket, and that's why the prices, goods and services, remained stable. And Ben Franklin was interviewed in France. They said, "How are you so successful, you Americans?" And he said, "Well, we have a script. And what we do is we print this pretty pieces of paper, and people know that it has a value and it's exchanged. And that's what we do. We exchange it. And we never give it to people, because if you give it, then you increase inflation. So there's exchange. So people bring their gold and silver or other currency, and we swap for this script. And there's no interest. That's the important thing. So what happened is, if you want to give a little backstory of this, is the Rothschilds. They were goldsmith, and Rothschild means a red shield. So they had a red shield out front of their business, and they were a goldsmith. So you take your gold to them, and they would deposit it and give you a receipt. It's a lot easier walking around with a piece of paper. So if you've got a whole bunch of gold and you wanted to buy a ship, you'd go and swap it. And the guy who bought the ship, sold the ship to you, would go back to the goldsmith and exchange that receipt for gold if he wanted to. Well, what happens when a guy made it rich and he was a passenger on that ship and he had that receipt and the ship went down? Well, Rothschild has more gold. So now they're loaning their gold. That's how you do it. It's all by theft. So then what happened is that he loaned money to France to fight England. And then he loaned money to England to fight France, with the provision that if you won, you got to pay the loser's bill to me. So he was going to win either way. So at the Battle of Waterloo, it happened that the England won. So the spy for Rothschild made it through the checkpoints, made it to him that night. And so the next morning, he went into the stock exchange and started selling British bonds, just like the movie Trading Places. Sell, 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 And so the prices went down. Everybody saw what Rothschild, and they said, "Oh my gosh, France won. That's why he's selling all of his bonds." So he's selling bonds. At the same time, he's buying his French bonds. So he's selling, he sells it all the way down, and he's been selling any of his French bonds too, because then they think French bonds are going up. So some of his French bonds he's selling at a higher price, but he's unloading the French bonds, and he waits to the bottom and he buys up all the British bonds because they all think it's going to be worthless. Then lo and behold, we find out that France lost, so their bonds are worthless, and so Rothschild made a huge killing. So that's what every war is, a banker's war from that point on. So Lincoln came to him and said, "We need some money, and at 34%, I'll make my own." So that's back to the greenback with having no interest. So we're paying 6%. So when a millionaire lights a cigar with $100 bill, we're paying 6% every year forever. And so what happened is that I believe the Federal Reserve created the Depression. And that's well known. They did admit that they raised the interest rate, so you choke off the economy, but no one talks about what the next steps were. And that's where what happened is that banks went out of business. Banks were consolidated. So in this process, that's where the Federal Reserve got its power. They were powerless in 1913. It took them a while to get it, but banks wouldn't join them, because why should they? It wasn't right to do. And then when there's nobody left and they have the concentration, that's when they introduced the fractional banking. So yes, you were right. In the classes we were taught, if someone makes a deposit, they can then claim, "Oh, we'll loan out 90%. They don't loan out the 10,000 turns into 100,000. And that's what they do, is you sign a promissory note first. Now there is no reserve. They don't have to have any percentage. So it's unlimited. So that's why the banks can write any number in your free checking account. So that is what is going on. And in your show notes, your very first link is just that. It's from a legal website that says you do not make deposits. This is a loan. You're taking your money into a bank and it's a loan. And banks don't loan out the depositor's money. So, but there are other websites that contradict that. So that's the whole misinformation, and they're trying to confuse you. But there are many, many websites that are truthful ones that are from a legal point of view. And that's the truth, is you do not have a relationship of a debt with the bank. You have a loan.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's really fascinating when people look at, there was the gold standard. Okay, so that's real money. What they call the fiat currency is the paper, right, that they write. So I remember in 09, 08 and 09. So we're coming into 2008, and since the inception of our country, we had printed $800 billion bills. Okay, the paper, the fiat currency, 800 billion. By 2009, we had 2.75 trillion. In 1 year, they printed $2 trillion. Okay, so here's my analogy I use with my kids. I taught them this. I said, okay, listen, the Babe Ruth baseball card? There's like 200 in existence. I don't know, they're worth $100,000 a piece or something. I don't know. Not a baseball guy, but it's a good analogy. I said, so there's like 200. But what if I went up in the attic and crazy old Uncle Fred had 75 boxes chalked to the top full of Babe Ruth baseball cards. I grabbed all those and dumped them on the market. How much would those first 200 cost? How much could you get them for? Like nothing, right? Totally devalue the whole thing. I said, that's devaluation of the currency. And that's what's happened since the inception of the Federal Reserve. Since 1913, we've lost like 97, 98% of its value. Right. That's why things cost so much now, right? People, not just inflation, but you say like, hey, in 67, 67 Mustang cost $3,000. What does it cost today? It's like 40 some thousand, right? 50, 60, whatever you want to pay. All the cars are crazy, but it's that idea too, when you talk about this, and there's this whole cycle from the Federal Reserve and getting in with the government and having all the government employees being paid, which is, it's just a scam. They just print the money, give it to them. They go cash the check, they get the money back, and they just keep working for them, right? That whole thing. But when you really dive into this stuff, Tommy, it's pretty interesting. And I like the point you made that bankers' wars. I mean, the reality, okay, for at least the last 100+ years, okay, from World War I and beyond, even before that, it was that. Right. And you can look at that. It's all documented now. You can see all this kind of stuff. But it's very interesting how all that stuff ties together, even down to the credit card situations. Right. And this whole thing about this manipulation of money. One of the simple things, too, is like, okay, we do a lot of business online. Right. have an internet business. I'm a coach. I do coach people all over the country. And well, you got to have a payment service. And they take 3.25% and everything you pay, right? So does it every time you swipe your debit card. Merchant gets a fee, 3%, and this guy does, and the person paying and the person receiving. Okay, so now everyone's like, I'm like, wow, well, if that keeps going around, if I start with $50 and they take 3%, and then now the merchant doesn't get that 3%, right? So they're less. Then it goes again and again and again. Pretty soon, who's got all the money? The bank. Who's charging? It just keeps going until there's no money left of that 50. There's nothing left to give, but I give them cash. That 50 can go to 50, can go to 50. It never loses 3% every time it changes hands. I mean, just think how many times you swipe your debit card, and it keeps going around and around because you never use cash anymore because, gee, that's inconvenient, but you're just, the money that's being stolen is being stolen. People say, well, you got to pay for it. I got to pay for what? Okay, because I guess my little tirade here, but if I go to the gas pump and I put my card in to fill my tank and it says card declined, okay, because it knows I don't have any money. But if I go through a payment processor and they swipe my card, they hold my money for 2, 3, 4 days. Interesting, like they don't have it. But when I don't have it, and I can I get my money and you can check back in 2 or 3 days, see if I got it. I mean, it's that kind of stuff you look at. Like if you're paying a little bit of attention, it's kind of ironic, and you look at it and go, yeah, this is kind of a crooked system, because when they're dealing with the billions and the gazillions, right, there's interest. Right. Every day they hold on to that money. Every moment they do, they can prolong in for a day or two. The 15,000 in the bank you can't get out. We talked about in the beginning. Same thing. Why? It's my money. I just want my money. And it's, and a lot of people have run into this, or they haven't, because a lot of people don't do that. But it's just a really fascinating thing. And that's why I'm enjoying talking to you, because you got to have someone who's looked into it and then, been inside, to, so to speak, like, and then either had to battle against it or whatever the case, right? Like, what does this actually look like, and where is it actually going? I think that's the big thing, Tommy, is like, well, what does this look like? We're watching cash being used less and less. They want a global one world currency. Okay, that's the big thing. And if again, if you got your one eye halfway open, okay, you should be a little bit terrified, in my opinion. When all you can do is swipe your card and someone else controls all that. I said it's beyond a slippery slope. It's a straight cliff. It's a cliff straight down.
When you mentioned about having a credit card in business, I was in business in 1985, taking people's checks and cash. Once I went through the process of becoming, receiving a credit card payment, my business doubled and doubled and doubled. So if I didn't take that card, I wouldn't have the business that I did. So you really were required to do it. And then we kind of go back to that depression, K bono. K bono is Latin for who benefits. So there's got to be a benefit to some place. So if your employees at the Federal Reserve and your employees in Congress are working for the whole richest family, is the Rothschilds. And when I was growing up, I read the book Rich and Super Rich and explained exactly why the Rothschilds are so far above everybody. But you try to do some research now, cleaned off. You can't find out anything about it. They're hanging around. So you hear the Rothschild family in the news and stuff like that. But the question is who benefits? And of course, if you know inflation is going to happen, what you do is you borrow now. For example, when I was married, my wife had a student loan. She was a nurse, and it was about $100 a month. And so it took her at $15 an hour at the time. Well, it's about 7 hours or so. But then when she got more skill, and a couple of years later, she was like a per diem nurse, and she was getting $25 an hour. So it only took her 4 hours of labor instead of 7. So we were kind of like ahead of the game because of the inflation in her wages. I was a UPS driver and I was a Teamster. And so I was getting about $11 an hour at the time. And then we had a COLA, cost of living allowance, that boosted us up. And I was lucky to have a union that represented us and got that, but we were always behind. So if you know that you're going to borrow this money, what you want to do is get land, owned land all across the country, because you know it's going to be worth more in the sense of the dollar's worth less. So how you simply figure this out is everything has to be measured in gold. And now there's a website called Priced, and that's past tense, Priced in Gold. And one thing you can look at is the Dow Jones. I look at the Dow Jones as an emotional number. So if you type that up, you will see that in 2000 is when the peak of the stock market happened. It's not peaking now. We have been in a 25-year depression. So this depression has been going on for 25 years, and you had no idea. This is not even the start yet. You haven't seen nothing yet. So we go from waves of optimism and pessimism. Optimism is slow burning from the bottom of 29 all the way up to when it peaked at 777. And that was in 1984. Then it dipped down, and that's gone crazy. But that's the kind of the herd, the mentality of that whole thing is the mania. So we have a stock mania for this. And so going back to that, what you can look at price in gold and see that the Dow Jones peaked in 2000 and it's going down. So then also you can look up wages, and wages are down. If you look at the peak was in 1970, and that's when a man could be working and making money. And that was, they have a number next to a tree. Now it's 0.3. So it has shown how it's going to take 10 times the labor to make what the guy was making in 1970. People don't see that. So this inflation's done on purpose. So if you're in the position of power, you got all the schlubs, all the trying to catch up. So that's where we're behind. So this leads into kind of like what I'm talking about is that law is language and language of law. So if you use the words of the criminal, you'll never win this argument. So that's where we don't use the words credit card. We have to call it for what it really is.
Right. Totally. Totally. So, going real quick back to the gold stuff too, which is real money, like you're saying with the S&P, or you do with the Dow or whatever it is. What I was learning too was, what you do is look at like oil. How many barrels of oil does an ounce of gold buy? That's where your real money is. It's not how many dollars. Okay. It's not, hey, it's $40 a barrel, $150 a barrel or whatever. No, how much gold will buy me a barrel? And then that's the real price. Okay.
Right.
Because gold
And
always wins. It always wins.
right.
Always resets and comes back.
And it's a very simple formula so that when we would trade something with somebody else, let's say we're farmers and I had corn and you had something else, a meat. And so we did a swap. We figured out what the value is. It's not 1 ear of corn for a pound of meat. It had to have a quality of an evaluation of how much time. That's what let's see, Adam Smith talked about in his book, is the time is what the value is on a price. So the price that can go up and down with supply and demand, but why is there always a bottom value? Because it's amount of time. So with that in mind, what we did is we changed, and it's a C equals C, commodity to a commodity, and we knew what the value was. But then we went to the market and we tried to swap it, and the meat guy wasn't there that week. Well, we would exchange it for money. So C equals M. We'd come back next week with our money and exchange it for a commodity. So the M was always kept in check. It was just the medium of exchange. Other people would come to the market with money, exchange it for a commodity, and then raise the price because they wanted to leave with more money. So now you have an M equals C equals M plus. So now you have more money. And that's where we're in a currency dominated economy. That's what I call it. And we were in an agricultural dominated economy. That's the reason why I'm here in the Philippines, because there's still this value, morals and values here, and there's none in America. If you have morals and values, you are at a disadvantage. You're a stupid schlub. You're a fool. It's the criminals that can profit from the system. So if you cut your morals and values, you can become wealthy. And if you do it the right way, which I have to call the right way, you'll never make it. So that's kind of ties in back to what we're talking about is the credit cards and things like that.
Yeah, it's a complicated system, and there's an old saying a politician had mentioned once. A friend of mine's uncle was a politician in Chicago, so we're talking corruption. Okay, Chicago knows corruption. All right, and you always ask, like, this seems so. Why are they doing this? I don't understand why this is this way or why this is that way, whether it's roads construction or whatever. And he just goes, Richard, confusion creates profit. There's profit in confusion. Okay. And I'm like, oh, and that was one of those things, there's profit in confusion, that the light bulb goes off and you start seeing everything different. Like when you don't understand, like it's complicated for a reason, because they are trading hands back there. Money is going all over the place. Nothing is attached to anything. It's all just fraud, right? So the whole thing is like that. Same thing in politics. Same principle. It's all just you don't know what's going on there. You think there's two sides. There's not two sides. They're all the same. Yep. They come out, they talk smack, they go back and shut the door, pat each other on the back, and divide the pie. That's all they do. I mean, I've lost, I'm old enough now where I can have lost all faith in politicians. I used to care. Now I don't care. I kind of see it. You all take the money. You're all enriching yourselves. You're all voting your way. You're doing the whole thing, right? But they also get, they probably don't get, actually. I don't want to call them dumb because they're kind of not. It's like when people call the presidents, there's no presidents that are stupid. Okay. Like that is underestimating and not knowing your enemy or anything, right? It's like you got to understand these people aren't there because they're dumb. Okay. They understand how to work a system. That's what they know how to do. So, when you look at the money thing, when you look at quantitative easing, okay, let's just print more. It's like, man, didn't they do that in Bismarck, Germany, World War One? They had 1,000 printing presses running 24/7. They couldn't make enough money, right? Well, that's to
They
pay war
actually
reparations.
loaned in Germany at the end, they were loaning the printing plates out to the factories. So in one place they're building a car, the other one they're printing out money, and they would pass it through the window to their wife that would run in line. So it was a 7-year inflation. There was a 7-month hyperinflation. There's a 7-day runaway inflation. And that's again what is coming to us. And so it's going to happen.
Yeah, Tommy, it's interesting. You start thinking about like, well, when is it? When is it gonna? And it creeps. You don't know. We get delays sometimes. We got a little bit of favor. Maybe we can make some traction for a little. Oh, that's back to the thing. But it's on the same trajectory. Like you're saying, the highest peak was 2000. This time everyone's like, it is. I thought when Trump was in during 2016, 17 was. I thought it's now. I thought it's whatever. And then I've watched all this stuff. I've been through all this, all the up and down and all this, all the bubbles and everything else from real estate to internet to everything else. And it's just to watch all this happen and try to watch the valuations of businesses. I remember in 2099, 98, 99, there was a company, internet's like, it's bananas, right? It's the thing. I had guys tell me there won't be stores anymore. Okay. And nope, everything's going to be online. This is where it's going. And I'm like, well, you own a store? Are you concerned? Like, so we're talking, and I'm like, I remember this one company was bought. They bought this internet company. This is the brick and mortar company for $170 million. The valuation was on nothing. Okay. Like 6 months later, zero. They bought it. Good for the guys who sold it. Okay, they got 170 million, and they just had nothing. It just went to. They just thought it's the wave, and we're going to get on the wave, So there's even like that's where some dumb people hang out. Okay,
That's the lunacy of a mania,
right? That's what it is. So you watch all this stuff, and you see these waves come and go, Tom. You're like, wow, like I'm not really a wave rider. I just kind of keep doing my thing. I'm doing my thing and I'm building my thing and I'm helping people and I'm building this business and I'm doing this stuff. And I kind of stay off of that kind of stuff, but I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Right.
Yeah. Well, back in July 4th of 2000, I'm in a park and they're having a celebration. They have a band, they're playing. And what do they play? The Macarena. What do? I'm sitting there. I know this is a mania. I have been pre-warned. I've been studying McKay's book, all about crowds and crowd psychology. But if I didn't get up and do that stupid Macarena, I would have looked like an idiot. So I got up there and I'm doing the thing like everybody else just to follow, but I knew it was a mania. And where did that go? That's the peak. Name me a song that was faster than the Macarena and faster spreading. They even got the Pope to be doing it. So there's no song. And that was the epitome. That was a point, the highest point of optimism that we had. Now we're headed towards optimism and pessimism. So, but when we bottom out, and that's when the Dow will lose about 95% of value. So 5% times 40,000, about 200. So when the Dow's about 200, I'm buying whatever business is there. So right. We won't see Microsoft. We're not going to see a lot of these people. They're not there anymore. But if they're there and it's 200, then everyone is telling everyone the depression's coming. And I'm going, no, we've already passed it. We've been in the swing for 25, 35, 45. So how do you ever know the when? And now you're at prediction, before you speak. Mm-hmm. This cannot be. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not running a show. So I'm always behind. Things are made, decisions are made, and they publicly tell you. Gates and Fauci announced in 2000 that this was going to be the decade of the vaccine. They told you they're going to vaccinate every single person in the world. They're trying to murder 7.5 billion people. Mm-hmm. And they're doing a pretty good darn job of it. So I did not get vaccinated. I knew it was poison, so I'm not doing that. And I had a lady come up to me and said, "You must be a Republican. You want people to die." I'm laughing at you people.
Yep, you're going to kill grandma. You're going to. Yeah, that whole thing was insane, Tommy. But I want to make one point. There is one person that didn't do the Macarena, and that's me. Okay, never once, never sat down. I am the unbelievable contrarian. Okay. If there's a herd doing anything, you won't see me as part of it. You ever see the meme? It's a meme. It's like Hitler's up talking. You got all the Germans doing the highlight, and you got the one guy standing with his arms crossed. You ever
Hmm.
see that picture?
Right.
He just standing looking, and
Oh,
goes,
yes.
"That's who I am. That's who I would have been."
Yep.
Like, what is this? Okay.
And he was executed. So they
Yeah,
did track him
exactly. So
down.
I'd
He,
be
he
dead.
didn't
Yeah.
survive. Right.
Right. So it's like, but you're right. The whole thing, the manias and everything else. I'm really good with that. I tend not to be a super fun person. Okay, so my
No
my
fun
kids,
Tom. That's what they call me. No
yeah,
fun Tom.
that's right. When my kids, like, one time they had my phone, they're like, "Dad, you don't have any games on your phone." I go, "Because Daddy don't play games. That's why. I don't play games. I don't ever play games. I don't play games. I'm just that guy. I don't do that. I don't spend time on that." But you're right though. You get these waves, these manias, and even going back to gold again, they outlawed gold.
Yeah. How
FDR.
can that be?
They outlawed it.
How can
Like, you
that
go to
be?
jail.
It's our Constitution. But then you look at the Constitution, and Adams instituted sedation, stopped people from speaking. So wait a second, you give us rights, and the very first second president takes it away from us.
Yep.
So in 1918, if you called yourself an Irish American, you were jailed. That was illegal to say that, because you had to have your allegiance to America first. You could be American with Irish descent, so you can be an American with ancestry in Africa. But if you call yourself an African American, what color are you? Because I've seen them very light, down to the South America and South
Right.
Africa, which are white, and then every color in between. So what's a
Right.
South African? That's Elon Musk, is an African American.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't use that term either.
Yeah, it's wild that what people don't, and it's really the lack of historic knowledge. This
Oh,
this is
there's no
why
history.
this
There's nothing taught in the college, the
right, and
schools.
and that's why this stuff can be perpetuated,
Oh, yeah.
because no one has any set points. They don't know
Well, if
what
you look up
was.
if you look at what Casey said from the CIA, our whole job is to make you so confused you don't know anything is true. So that's the
Right.
whole purpose of the thing. And Ford said the only purpose of education was to get an educated worker just enough so they know how to do the job, but not enough to know what the system they're being scammed. So my viewpoint, first of all, I wear a pair of glasses, and I'm a theist. I believe there's an involved God. The second pair of glasses that go over is that I believe we were enslaved about 10,000, 12,000 years ago, and we're still enslaved. Well, now it's called wage slavery or debt slavery. So how can I be a sovereign in this enslaved world? So that's why I'm here in the Philippines. I'm teaching farmers how to build dome house with bamboo, so it's free housing. I'm teaching how to do vertical gardening, so they have abundance of food, free food. And I'm also helping them set up self-managed medical care clinics. And so to help me finance what I'm doing here, I wrote that book, Forgive and Forget, How to Nuke Your Credit Card Debt. So there are true credit cards. Okay, so this is not a get out of debt scheme that I'm trying to promote to you. And it doesn't work for a house loan. It doesn't work for a car loan, or if you put something up for a personal loan. That's not that. And it's not a scheme. You are a victim. So I'm your victim advocate. I'm trying to educate you and your audience that there has been a worldwide fraud brought on by the banks. And so there is a true credit card. Let me explain it very quickly. You go to a tire store and you need tires for your car, obviously. And they tell you, you're going, I don't have that kind of money. Oh, well, hey, Richard, why don't you apply for an in-store credit card and see if you're approved? You're approved. So you drive away with tires on your car and you didn't pay for it. At the end of the month, you get a statement. That's true. In that statement, they have an unpaid outstanding invoice, which is true. You have to pay that. So when I have people in my charity come to me and I say, oh, you have to pay for that one because it's a tire store. Well, wait a second. You're telling me I bought tires at Walmart, and that's not. No, you don't pay that. How can you tell the difference? Look on the back of the credit card. If it's from a bank, that's obviously a bank, but I'm talking about ones from Amazon or Walmart or any kind of department store, any other store issuing a credit card. If it says issued by Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of London, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of India, I'm talking all around the world about this. So it's all the same. That is a scam, and it's not a true credit card because they don't have an invoice. That's why I woke up one morning and went, wait a second. The bank did not put tires on my car. The bank didn't come out to my house and do a plumbing job. They don't have an invoice, and they're only involved in loans. So you have to understand that the bank did not do a service or sell you a product, and they don't have an invoice. If they don't have an invoice, they don't have a debt. Then you can say they argue that they had a loan.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's important to understand the difference. It can get complicated, but really understanding those differences. I think, Tommy, is just we have massive financial illiteracy in our country, in the world, really. But in our country, I can speak for the U.S. Obviously, only that's where I'm at. But the reality is, it's just you're not taught anything. Okay, now I'm not young. Even in the school when I was there, like, yeah, they showed us how to write a check at least. The kids don't even do that
Some people
now. They
never get
don't
that.
need to. They don't even need to, right? So, but I mean, we went through some basics, right? You got some basics. You know, you did your home ec and you did this, and they talk about a little bit. You actually learn a little bit about the Constitution and stuff like that, you know, and had to test out and all that kind of stuff. But today, there's just nothing. It's just pretend it's plastic. It's just a thing that you get, and people think food comes from grocery stores. You know what I mean? They don't have. I mean, it's like it's weird. Like they really do. They think that's where meat comes from. Is the
Right.
refrigerated section of Walmart? They think that's where it comes from. Like someone, it's like it was raised there or something. I don't know. You know, I live in farm country. Like you, we have I have 1,200 cows right down the road. Okay, so we know. I can smell it, I can see it, I can touch it. I got it all, right? So come for the fresh country smell. But but they honestly don't know. You know, especially these
Right.
urban areas, things like that. They don't have a sense of what's real anymore. So this is really
Right.
weird.
So
I'll take right. Tell me.
they're not taught about money. And so again, you're ignorant. So what banks do are they're involved in loans. So when you have no money and you go into a bank, you want to walk out with money, not with a gun, but you want
Right.
to walk out with a loan. So let me ask you a question, Richard. If you apply for a loan and the bank turns you down, do you still get the loan? No,
No.
of course you don't get the loan. You're denied. But if you're approved, because that's what an application means, is a request. So that's where people confuse this credit card application with everything. No, it's just a request. Then what you did is you went into the bank and you filled out loan documents, all that paper, all that, and you had to prove you had an income. Because how are you going to pay this loan back? The bank is taken into court and the judge says, you're loaning money to people who don't even have an income? That's predatory. So the bank has to have you prove you have an income. Then you have a collateral. So like your car, your house, or if you do a personal loan, you put your yacht up. Well, then they have a legal ability to take it away from you, sell it. And if they come up short, too bad for them. But if they come up long, they don't keep that money. They got to give you the difference. Then there also has to be a credit report, and your credit score determines your interest rate. The last thing you sign is a promissory note. And that does not happen with a bank issued alleged credit card. So I want you to have a mind as open is that we use the word alleged. So we see a bank robbery in progress. We always call it an alleged bank robbery. All I want you to do is say alleged and make the bank prove they have an invoice, which is not possible. Now you ask them to prove a promissory note. You didn't sign a promissory note. There is no loan.
Yeah. Yeah. There it is. And there it is. There it is. But yeah,
There it is.
it's just a fascinating topic. I think you can go so many directions on this. We could spend hours talking about this, but we need a few cups of coffee or something to keep us going. But it's just one of those things that I think people, especially in business, like we have to understand our numbers. I preach this all the time with my clients. We need to understand our numbers, our KPIs, everything we're doing, right? It's all based on we have to create income. We have to create revenue. We have to keep as much as possible, right? It's always about keeping our profit. What does that look like? And then is what do you do with it? Right? There's this whole thing. So I think we talk about the financially illiterate, but I think even in business where you're more literate, not always totally literate, and I'm speaking for myself. My first 20 years, I just made a lot. I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't do anything good with it. Okay, except lose it. Somebody got it. It wasn't
Right.
me. Okay. So that whole thing was like you don't know, but you kind of get running your business and taking the time to create financial awareness and understand I have this active business income. Wow, it's kind of a lot. What should I do with it? Right. It's a whole nother show. Right. But it's like understanding what you have and how to make that work for you, in the best way possible to leverage all this hard work, all this investment of your time and your sweat and everything else in your business, like to truly be profitable and then profit from your profit. Okay. That's just another
Yeah,
step.
it
It's
doesn't
like,
matter how
dude,
much, it doesn't matter how much you make, it's how much you keep. And
that's
that's
right.
where the banks are, and banks, we agree, advertise to get a customer. Years ago, they would purchase toasters and wall clocks and have them in the bank. They say, oh, if you open an account, we'll give you a toaster. That was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
So then one time they had an ad in the paper that I saw. I said, come into our bank and deposit $25 and we'll match it in 90 days. So what did I do? I took my $25, waited 91 days, went into the bank and took out $50, my 25 and the bank's 25. Now, and they closed my account. So I chose to close the account. So let me ask you a question, Richard. Did I rip off the bank?
No,
Did I steal from the bank? Now,
no.
here's an important question. Was that immoral what I did? No, the bank said, do this. And I did it. And I walked out with their $25. So bad. Most people didn't. They stayed in it, but that's me. There's a guy on YouTube, and that's in the show notes. It's a fourth link. And he says, do this. And I made $361. I'm trying to tell you and your audience exactly what happened with a credit card. The bank sent you this card, sometimes not even approved, not even applied for. It just came in the mail. You're pre-approved. So you got this gift. So if I give you something, it's called a gift. If you buy it, well, you own it. If you borrow it, well, then you're in a loan situation. But this just came in the mail. So what did you do with your gift card? See, if you start using the truthful words and not the criminal language, you're going to be able to win the argument. So, Richard, what is something that you want to buy right now for $500? What would it be? Anything?
I don't know. You can't get much with
A
500
microphone.
anymore. Yeah. Yes. A
I
bigger,
know.
better
But
microphone. Yeah.
a better microphone. Perfect. So you go into the store and you buy this microphone and you're walking out, but you didn't pay $500 for that mic, did you? No, you had a gift card. Well, then who paid that store that night or the next day? Who paid the store? Because they let you walk out with their $500 microphone and you have a receipt, proves that you own it. So you own this microphone, you're walking out the door. So who paid them? The bank,
Yeah.
right?
The gift
So
giver.
right. Where did this bank get the money? It's from their advertising budget. All right. Now you understand, because on average, and type this up yourself, I did this 2 months ago. What's the average person pay on their credit card fees? It's $23.04. So if the bank knows you're going to be paying them $23 every month on the fees and the annual fees, over limit fees, all those fees for a free checking account, that's the fraud going on. They know in 22, 23 months, they're going to make their $500 back. So if you're on a higher level, they give you 50,000, 100,000, 5 million. They can write any number they want as long as you've signed a promissory note, but you didn't sign a promissory note. It's not a loan. So they give this card to you to get you as a customer. Okay. So you get home and a month later, a bill comes. You think it's a bill. It's not. It's a bank issued alleged credit card statement. You get regular statements in the mail all the time. You used to. Now it's email, but from your normal checking account. Is that a bill? No, it's not a bill. It shows what you started with, your deposits, what you spent, your checks, your debit, and then maybe some fees, and you have an ending balance. That's a statement. Exactly. See, you don't have an experience that I had. When I was an accountant, my first job, the CFO, which is the CPA, he walked up to me and said, pointed finger, if you pay from a statement, I'm going to fire you. They explained that his owners of the company make deals all the time. A check could have crossed in the mail. You never pay from a statement. So I know that you never pay from a statement, only an invoice and only a proper invoice. So what happens is that you get this, you think it's a bill. So you write a check out from, let's say, Bank of the Farm Bank, your local farm bank. You write that check to Bank of America. That's the first time the Bank of America has ever seen your money, right? Think this through. A card comes in the mail. You spent out on a gift card or a gift, you got it. And then all of a sudden you get this bill, you think, and so you write a check from your bank to that bank. That's the first time that bank's ever seen your money. That's a loan. You have loaned that bank $500. And what has happened is every purchase you've made since then has been with your own money. There's no loan. There's nobody they borrowed it from. You fronted money and put it into your checking account. And every month you keep putting money in. There's not $1.3 trillion of credit card debt. It's not true. That's the amount of money that the banks want you to deposit. but it's not. It's not a bill. So how do you get out of this? You don't get out of debt. You're a victim. You're a crime victim. I'm your advocate. So what we do is we have you get your credit report first, because now we have the evidence of a crime. We have you go do a police report. Well, you don't go to the police to ask this. No, there are state and federal agencies that we have you file a complaint with, because now you have the evidence. And so now you then send a letter to the bank, ask them to close your free checking account. And it happens to me, it will happen to you. You do not have a debt, but you better take your money out first. You might call it max out the card. You don't max out the card. It's withdrawing your money out of your checking account. So you've got to withdraw your money out of your checking account before you close it, because they're not going to give it to you. They confiscate it. So that's how you solve this situation. And you can turn right around with my help, get your credit score back up, or it might go up immediately, apply again for a credit card. And now you know I'm educated you on how to deal with it. So it's not an annual fee, and you never pay any interest, and you have the knowing of the risk that they can lower your credit limit down. No, that's the criminal language. They don't lower your credit. They stole the money out of your account, and there's nothing much you can do with that. So you go into this eyes wide open, knowing the risk that you take, but you can also get your score back up and be able to buy an airline ticket and be able to rent a car. So at least you'll be an informed consumer and come ahead. You'll be ahead of the game, because most of the people, I find money for them, so it doesn't cost them anything. So that's my story.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Tommy, it's been great. This has been a lot of fun. We ping-ponged a little bit. That was fun. You know, we can jump on a few. Like I said, it's a deep topic, not just credit card, money. I mean, money is just like the history of money. Everything. I gotta go back to 410 BC in Athens when they're snipping off part of the coin, you know, for the gold and this and that and all that stuff. And 25 years of war. And look, all of a sudden they got the unbelievable inflation. And it's just, you know, then everything resets back to gold. And it's, you can track it through all the human history. It's been that. So it's such a fascinating topic.
Yeah. Well, to very quickly, our first writing has been invoices. We have 20,000, these little clay ingots that are written on it. It's invoices. So our very first writing 5,000 years ago was invoices. So that's what you work with, invoices, not a statement.
I was thinking about this as you're saying, you know, in business, let's say we have someone who we did work for and they owe me $10,000 and they're not feeling like paying. You know what? My one thing I had to continually do, send an invoice every month. I had to keep sending an invoice. Like if you stop sending an invoice, like that's not going to work out well for you as a business owner. You have to keep sending it like every month. You got to send the invoice. You owe me, you owe me, you owe me, you owe me, you know, until you get to court and say, see, I've sent them an invoice every month for 19 months and they haven't paid a dime. I'm just trying to get my money, you know, but it's, you're right about the invoice thing. I love it. So really fascinating conversation, Tommy. I love seeing these ins and outs. I love what you're doing for people in this realm. This is unique. Okay. This is different. You know, again, I think we explained it pretty well. It's not criminal. Okay. But if people are in this situation, whatever that might be, or need to get that credit rating up and everything else, that's a whole nother story. Oh my gosh, credit ratings, you know, see, we go on forever. We go on forever, right? So, but we're not gonna. We're gonna wrap this up.
More coffee. More coffee.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just great. So I mean, I know we're gonna have a lot of stuff in the show notes, but why don't you just tell everyone how they can maybe reach out to you, get a hold of you, follow you, that kind of thing?
Sure. Tommy A. Kilpatrick on Facebook, and my email will be in there. And I offer a free 15-minute conversation. And if you do that, I'll give you my $69 book for free. So you got nothing to lose, but
there you go.
Your victimness. Don't be a victim anymore.
That's right. I love it. I love it. Well, Tommy, thank you so much for spending the time today. This has been a great episode. I appreciate your diligence in this stuff and really, really bringing some truth to light. That's always a good thing. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. I have lost my. I'm going to have to trim this thing down. There we go. Thanks for tuning in to Sharpen the Spear podcast. If today's episode helped you think sharper, act smarter, or see new profit potential, do me a favor. Share it with a fellow home service owner and leave a quick review. Ready to find the profit hiding in your business? Head to sharpenthespearcoaching.com and book your free profit discovery call today. And until next time, keep sharpening.